Why am I naked? Bringing a drunk person into your room is the worst. I enjoyed the company trip banquet, but I never expected to be yelled at for helping my drunken boss. I tried to explain desperately, but the next workday, my boss glared at me as she arrived. I need to talk to you. Come to the conference room. I gulped nervously. That look on her face didn't promise a pleasant conversation. When I steeled myself and headed to the conference room, she locked the door and cornered me against the wall. Hey, did you like my... What? My name is Alex. I'm just an ordinary office worker. I dislike standing out, so I always try to keep a low profile at work. However, that often doesn't go as planned, and no matter how much I try to stay unnoticed, situations arise that make it impossible. It's never because I did something. It's usually because of my direct boss. Her name is Emily. I'm basically her right-hand man, doing everything she needs. I don't mind the work itself at all, but there's something else that worries me every day. When I first started working under her, I thought she was incredibly competent. Because of that, I found the workplace very comfortable and easy to work in. However, that impression gradually deteriorated over time. The beginning of the change was a lunch outing to a diner, while we were on a business trip. As soon as we entered the diner, I felt countless stares like never before. It wasn't just one person looking at us. I felt eyes on us from all directions. No wonder, because the diner we entered, including the owner, was full of men. And their dazed looks were all directed at Emily. The stares I felt weren't aimed at me, but at her, who was walking close to me. As soon as we sat down, the owner, uninvited, came over with a smile and persistently asked for her order. The other customers kept glancing at her while pretending to eat their meals. Even though I knew the stares weren't meant for me, just being in that space was torture. However, she seemed completely unfazed and continued as usual after placing her order. From my experiences working with Emily, I realized she was very attentive to her superiors, and considerate towards me and other juniors. She was always observant of her surroundings. Someone like her, who pays such close attention, couldn't possibly be unaware of the discomforting stares she received. I realized she endured these stares daily, seemingly unbothered. It made me genuinely admire her strength. However, becoming aware of this shattered my peace of mind. Since the incident at the diner, I became hyper-aware of everything happening around her. I hadn't noticed it before, but she attracted a lot of attention even within the company. Especially from male employees, who would make uncomfortable remarks, or casually ask her out during work conversations. Things that would make me visibly uncomfortable happened to her regularly. Although it didn't directly involve me, she was my direct superior. Given how much she helped me, I couldn't help but feel concerned for her. Thinking about her feelings made it unbearably painful for me. And since she was always in the spotlight, the attention also extended to me as her subordinate. I became sensitive to the attention around me, initially because of her, but eventually towards myself too. The most common reaction was jealousy. She was admired by many as an ideal woman. Working under someone like her was a privilege, regardless of gender. And I'm the only one working in that position. So, it's natural for the jealousy and resentment to be directed at me. Even so, after becoming aware of it, my work life was far from peaceful. I've overheard other male employees talking about me behind my back. How can he be so indifferent working under such a beautiful boss? Maybe he's not into women? If it were me, I wouldn't leave her alone. If he's not interested, I wonder if we can switch positions? To be honest, I've never had those kinds of feelings for Emily. Once, Emily casually asked me, "Alex, do you have a girlfriend?" while having a small talk. I replied, "No, I don't. By the way, about this schedule." And switched back to work topics, fully focused on my tasks. In fact, I've never had romantic feelings for any woman at the workplace. I hadn't thought deeply about it before, but I probably disliked the idea of mixing personal and professional life. However, female employees see this as seriousness, and rate me highly as a stoic man. Alex is such a good worker and a nice guy. I heard he doesn't have a girlfriend right now. Maybe I'll make a move. I overheard such comments, but they didn't particularly make me happy. "Hey, Alex. Are you listening? Sorry. I wasn't. What did you say? It seemed I was lost in thought during work, while Emily was speaking. When I looked at her, she was giving me a puzzled look. That's not like you. Is something wrong? Are you feeling unwell? Do you need to take the day off? No, I'm fine. Sorry about that. Could you please repeat what you just said? I was asking about the progress on the report due tomorrow. Are you sure you're okay? You look more tired than usual. I took a deep breath and rubbed my eyes. I'm really fine. As for the report, I was just about to show it to you. Here it is. Please review it. Impressive. You're always quick with your work. But you do look down. Could it be that you're excited about next week's trip? Next week, we have a company trip. Could it be that you're unexpectedly looking forward to it? Emily nudged my shoulder playfully with her elbow. Don't lump me in with you. Isn't it you who's excited? Ha, you got me. Last year wasn't very enjoyable, so I want to make the most of it this year. How can you be so excited about a company trip? Of course. It's a great chance to bond with colleagues. Plus, she looked intently at my face. When I met her gaze, she quickly turned away. You might end up with your first girlfriend, Alex. I was bewildered by the sudden remark. That's none of your business. Anyway, please check the report. With that, she took the report and walked away, waving it slightly. I had told her before that I wasn't interested in office romances, so she should know. When I mentioned that I had never had a girlfriend, she was so surprised she froze. According to her, people who don't experience romance during their school years struggle as adults. She patted my head sympathetically after saying that. In the end, she even said, "Good luck." I was annoyed and made a sarcastic remark, but she just laughed. It's true I've never been in a romantic relationship. But during my school years, I did have crushes. I attended a private school, spending my days studying. My parents were strict, and even on weekends, I couldn't hang out with friends, or watch TV or read comics. A tutor would come to our house, and I would spend the entire day studying. It felt a bit restrictive, but I worked hard to see the joy on my parents' faces when I got good grades. Perhaps because I had worked so hard or because my parents were worried about me, who showed no interest in anything but studying. They told me I could go to any college I wanted and pursue my own interests. Seizing this opportunity, I decided to interact with various people and enrolled in a college I wanted to attend, even though its academic reputation was a bit lower. However, what awaited me there was the inevitable challenge of communication. Having devoted my entire life to studying through elementary, middle, and high school, I found it difficult to converse with others. Since I hadn't enjoyed any typical childhood pastimes, I couldn't relate to the topics my peers discussed. And I couldn't tell interesting stories either. Eventually, I began to feel isolated on campus. But there was one woman who didn't abandon me. She was a somewhat rebellious girl from the same department. Her personality was open and friendly to everyone, and I was no exception. Even though I couldn't speak well, she would laugh at my attempts and talk to me about various things. Having someone treat me this way was a first time for me, and I gradually found myself attracted to her. This was my first love. We were in the same school activity, which gave us more opportunities to talk. Feeling increasingly drawn to her, I confessed my feelings impulsively. But it was so sudden that she looked a bit troubled and said, "I need some time to think about it." I wondered if I had messed up, but I held on to some hope since she didn't outright reject me. However, as I anxiously waited for her response, I overheard her talking with her friends about me. "Hey, you know Alex from our department?" "Oh yeah, that guy?" "Yeah, he totally has a crush on you, right?" "Actually, he confessed to me." "No way. You should date him." "Haha, no way. He's such a nerd." I never realized she thought of me that way behind my back. I was mortified and deeply shocked that I had been so naive. I ran away from the scene. It was still morning, and I had afternoon classes, but I couldn't bring myself to attend them. I went back to my apartment and didn't leave for several days. Thus, my first love ended in the worst possible way, unknown to anyone else. Since then, I've struggled to talk to women and ended up as an adult with no romantic relationships. This experience likely contributed to my negative views on romance. Watching male colleagues flirt with Emily, or hearing women make comments suggesting they like me, became painful or indifferent experiences. Alex. As I was leaving work, Emily called out to me. Since we often had the same route home, we occasionally walked together if our schedules aligned. Today was one of those days. You seemed off today. Are you really okay? Yeah, somehow. We talked as we walked. Emily, can I cancel the company trip next week? Emily froze as if struck by lightning. Why? We agreed to make the most of it. The day the trip was announced, I had been unsure about going. At that time, I shared my bitter college story with her, seeking advice. That must have been tough. But even if it's uncomfortable, I think it's important to learn how to interact with colleagues outside of work. We work towards the same goals every day, so knowing each other better makes the work smoother. At that time, having someone to talk about my worries lifted my spirits, which was rare for me. Because of this, I decided on the spur of the moment to take a chance and go. Thinking, there might be an opportunity to change myself somewhere out there. But now, old memories resurfaced, making me reluctant to join the company trip. But, still, I can't do it. Even though I was talking to Emily, it was embarrassing to voice my doubts. Still, being able to be so honest with her made me wonder if I had some special feelings for her. You'll be fine. You've got this. After all, you're my excellent subordinate. You'll be okay, you can do it. Her words echoed the encouragement my first love once gave me. I almost misunderstood her intentions. Just like the other woman, she was only trying to motivate me just as her subordinate. She didn't see me as a romantic interest. I told myself this to stay calm. Even if there weren't any special feelings, she worked with me more than anyone else in the company. She must understand me better than anyone. The words from her felt genuine and not just for show. And even if things don't go well, I'll be here for you, right? Is this some kind of new harassment? What? You cheeky subordinate. Thanks to our joking banter, the old unpleasant memories and anxieties faded away. The day of the company trip arrived. Feeling a bit nervous, I headed to the bus boarding area. When I arrived, I saw the employees already gathered in their casual clothes. Everyone looked happier and more vibrant than they did at work. Just seeing this brought back old memories and stirred up my anxieties. As I stood at the boarding gate, I heard a voice from behind. Good morning, Alex. It was Emily who greeted me. Emily. All right. Let's go join the others. She took my arm and led me toward the group of employees. Despite my worries, the company trip turned out to be very enjoyable. Emily sat next to me on the bus, so I didn't have to worry too much, and being in the aisle seat, the person across the aisle started chatting with me. I rarely talk about anything other than work in the office. Especially not about personal matters. I felt the same, but the people who talked to me seemed to find it refreshing too. Even though I never ran out of things to talk about on the bus, since I didn't start conversations. The time I spent talking to each person felt short. While it was fun to talk to people I usually don't, I also realized how bad I am at communication. By the time we got off the bus, I had managed to break the ice with a few colleagues. Alex, you're a great listener and so kind. I was happy to receive such compliments. But at the same time, I regretted not being able to communicate better back in my school days, thinking I might have enjoyed those times more. When I felt overwhelmed by this regret, Emily patted my shoulder and said, "It's all good," with a big smile. Her smile cleared away the fog in my heart. After that, we spent the day sightseeing and having lunch in small groups, much like a school trip. Of course, I was in the same group with Emily. Aside from Emily and me, I didn't know how the groups were formed, but the guys in our group were as clingy to Emily as ever. Still, she treated them the same as she did in the office. While Emily and the clingy guys walked ahead, I walked behind with another female colleague. Naturally, I hadn't spoken to her before either. It seemed she wasn't the type to initiate conversations either. So, we mostly remained silent, but we managed to have some halting conversations. And I felt like I gained a bit of confidence in starting conversations myself. After sightseeing, our group headed to the inn, where we would stay for the night. It wasn't luxurious, but it seemed each of us had our own room. Since I rarely spend time in large groups, I was exhausted from the day's activities. For me, finally being alone in my room felt like the only place I could truly relax. I brought my luggage into the room, took a deep breath, and stared blankly at the ceiling. This company trip was a one-night, two-day event. I felt relieved of the fact that I had gotten through half of it without incident. Then, I heard a knock on my door. Yes? Alex? Are you there? It was Emily calling from outside my door. I opened the door and invited her in. I see, this room isn't any different from mine. Oh, Emily, your room is on the third floor, right? I started a conversation with her. Yes, and guess what? It's right above this room, she said with a grin, pointing to the ceiling. What's with that look? She moved closer, peering into my face. Did you imagine something weird? No way. I wouldn't think that about you, Emily. Oh. Too bad, she said, heading back to the door. Wait, Emily? I wanted to ask what she meant by, too bad, but she was already out in the hallway. For a moment, I was stunned. From behind, I could see her neck exposed by her t-shirt. Emily usually wore her long hair down, and high-neck tops at work, so no one had seen the back of her neck. But on this trip, while her hair was still down, her pale, beautiful neck stood out more. Emily had fair skin that was incredibly smooth, like porcelain. That smooth skin extended to her neck, but I thought I noticed an even whiter area, just below the nape of her neck. Well, the banquet starts soon. Don't be late, okay? She said before leaving my room. I didn't get a good look, but there was definitely a white spot. It piqued my curiosity, but I figured it was just some kind of decoration on her clothing, so I tried not to think about it too much. A few minutes later, as Emily had instructed, I headed to the banquet hall on the first floor. There, the company trip participants gathered for a banquet. Employees who had once aimed to be comedians, or were known for their singing, took to the stage to entertain everyone. Before long, the alcohol began to take effect, and the banquet turned into a lively party. Although I rarely drink, I found myself pleasantly tipsy after about an hour, despite the lively atmosphere. I tried to chat with the person next to me, but my words were often drowned out by the surrounding noise. Across from me, more and more men gathered around Emily. A proposal competition had started, and Emily, looking a bit puzzled, laughed at the men's ridiculous proposals. Seeing her like that made me happy, and I decided to leave early to prepare for tomorrow. I told the person next to me, I don't want to be affected tomorrow, so I'm heading out, and left the hall. I wanted to say goodbye to Emily, but the crowd around her was too thick, so I quietly left without saying a word. When I got back to my room, the noise from the banquet still echoed in my ears, making me dizzy. Although I felt like I had enjoyed myself in the moment, I still wasn't entirely satisfied with my experience. Banquets are supposed to be fun, and that's enough, I thought. Still, thoughts like, if only I could drink and talk like everyone else. And if only I could talk more, began to swell in my quiet mind. Might as well go to bed, I muttered to myself as I sat on the bed and started getting ready to sleep, when I heard a knock on the door. Wondering who it could be, I got up from the bed and walked to the door. Hey, open up. It was Emily knocking on my door. From her voice, it was clear she was quite drunk. Her voice was so different from her usual self, that I got a bit worried and quickly opened the door. Sure enough, she had been leaning against the door, and almost fell into my room as soon as I opened it. I hurriedly caught her to support her. Are you okay? You're really drunk. Her clothes was slightly disheveled from the drinking. As I helped adjust her clothes, she looked at me. Hee, I got so drunk, Alex. Everyone made me drink so much. Were you okay getting here by yourself? Yeah, everyone was being so persistent, so I told them I was going to the restroom and escaped. Her face was more flushed than usual due to the alcohol, and she looked even more alluring. As I was getting flustered by her unexpected charm, her expression suddenly changed, and her face grew pale. Ah! I feel a bit sick. Sensing something bad, I quickly took her to the bathroom in my room. And my bad feeling was spot on. She vomited until her stomach was empty. After a while, she seemed to calm down. Exhausted from throwing up, she slumped to the floor. "Emily, are you okay?" I asked, and she replied in a faint voice. Then suddenly, she stood up and turned to look at me. "Are you okay?" She smiled warmly, despite her still pale face, as if she was trying to hide her discomfort. "I'm fine now." But her face was still pale, and she seemed to be holding back the nausea. I helped her sit on my bed and handed her a bottle of water from the fridge. She took the bottle, drank some water, and took a deep breath. Gradually, her color returned. "Ah, I feel much better now. Thank you, Alex. And sorry for the unpleasant scene." "It's okay. If I hadn't helped, my room might have been covered in your vomit. That would have been embarrassing for me as your boss." "So, did you manage to talk to a lot of people today?" "More than usual." "From the look on your face, not much, huh? You really should talk more with everyone. You're quite popular, you know." "I'm not sure about being popular, but I do think I should talk more. And really, everyone else should be more attentive. They have no idea how great you are, letting you sit alone like that." Emily?" Emily's behavior seemed a bit off. "Because I'm your boss. You're good at your job and a nice guy. I want you to get along with everyone." Her speech was becoming more and more like a typical drunk. "Yes. I'm glad to hear that. But for now, maybe you should head back to your room." I tried to encourage her, but she wrapped her arms around my neck and pulled me closer. "You're my pride and joy, Alex." She began praising me cheerfully as if her drunkenness had returned. Even though she was drunk, it felt good to be complimented. Just as I was about to thank her, she suddenly seemed satisfied after saying everything she wanted to, and said, "I'm so sleepy," as she started to undress. "Hey, wait. Emily. This isn't your room." I tried to stop her, but she managed to slip off her clothes and innerwear, ending up in just her underwear. Moreover, she reached behind her to unclasp her bra, saying, "This is so uncomfortable," trying to remove it. Realizing this was serious, I grabbed her hands just in time to stop her. I sighed with relief, but before me was her beautiful body. Even though in her suit, I thought she had a great figure, but seeing her in person made it even more evident. At the same time, I noticed her secret. She had a large, white birthmark running down her back. It extended from below the nape of her neck. What I saw earlier wasn't my imagination. Unconcerned, she mumbled, "Bed," and collapsed onto my bed, falling asleep immediately. At least the damage was limited to her upper body. Watching her sleep peacefully with soft breaths, I felt a sense of relief and gently draped the top part of her clothes over her. I then sat down beside the bed and started researching the white mark on her back using my phone. What I found was a condition called vitiligo. This condition causes the cells that produce skin color to diminish, resulting in white patches on various parts of the body. Although it doesn't cause pain or itching, many people with it feel self-conscious about their appearance. So, she wore high-necked clothing to hide it. The fact that she hides it suggests that she's self-conscious about it. Having a different appearance from others must be challenging. It must have been hard, especially as a child. Reflecting on this changed my perception of her from just a beautiful and cheerful person. Realizing she might catch a cold, I laid her properly on the bed and covered her with the blanket. I then sat on the sofa, watching her sleep. Come to think of it, she rarely talks about herself. Maybe she doesn't have many good memories related to it. And it's understandable that she wouldn't share such things with a subordinate. But now that I knew, maybe this could be a chance to get to know her better. How should I bring it up? Lost in these thoughts, I didn't realize the night had passed and the sun was starting to rise. The morning light woke her up. She sat up and looked around. Noticing the chill, she looked down at herself and then at me. "Good morning," I said. Before I could finish my greeting, she quickly pulled the blanket over her upper body. "Why am I in my underwear?" "What?" she exclaimed, looking between me and her body. Then she glared at me with a red face. Did you bring me here? That's awful. It seemed she had no memory of last night. I sighed deeply and explained. Emily, you came into my room and started undressing on your own. Do you often do that when you're drunk? She froze as if remembering something. Her shoulders shook, and she blushed even more, curling up. Actually, yes. When I drink too much, I'm really sorry. Having calmed down a bit, she apologized sincerely. Feeling awkward, I hurriedly handed her a robe. It's okay. But please put this on so you don't catch a cold. She quickly put her clothes back on and covered herself with the robe, blushing. I'll go back to my room. I'm really sorry. She apologized again and quickly returned to her room. Finally, things calmed down. I didn't mention the white mark at all, but I suppose I didn't have the chance. Maybe she doesn't care about it as much as I thought. Yeah, no one wants to hear comments about their skin. I should just forget about it for her sake. I decided to keep the knowledge about her mark to myself. As I pondered these things, I felt myself getting drowsy. I ended up sleeping for about 2 hours. Soon, it was time to check out of the inn, and I boarded the bus. The company trip ended without incident, and life returned to normal. The trip made me more social at work, but my communication skills didn't improve overnight. Still, I hoped this experience would help me gradually open up more. I was grateful to Emily for giving me that opportunity. As soon as I got to work, Emily called me over. She instructed me to meet her in a conference room at a specific time. I was sure no one else would be using the room at that time. However, when she called me over, her expression and tone were more severe than usual. Worried that I might have done something wrong, I entered the conference room. Before I could ask, Emily quickly locked the only door and, without turning on the lights, pushed me against the wall. It made my heart race. What's this about? How did you like my body? Her mischievous smile was different from her earlier seriousness. I felt my heart race, in the face of her teasing grin and the situation. Ha! My voice cracked from surprise. Enjoying my reaction, she grinned even more. You liked what you saw, didn't you? I remembered seeing her upper body that night on the trip, and my heartbeat quickened. She released her hand from the wall and tugged at the neck of her high-necked innerwear. This is called vitiligo. White is a beautiful color, don't you think? I think it's not so bad. Or do you think it's strange? Hearing this, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders and slumped to the floor. Hey, are you okay? Yes, I'm fine. It's not strange at all. I just didn't know about vitiligo. I didn't realize it was caused by a lack of pigment cells. She seemed surprised by my response, her eyes widening. Wait, you looked it up? Of course. I was curious. You're my respected boss, after all. Hearing this, she sat down next to me, her eyes at the same level as mine. I noticed her eyes were moist. I didn't understand why she was crying. Is something wrong? No, nothing. Thank you for thinking about me. I guess I made you worry. Also, sorry for undressing. I'm a terrible boss. Not at all. Even with that, you're still a respected boss. Anne, you were really beautiful. I hesitated to say that, but it slipped out. Her face turned red at my words. You didn't need to say that. After that, she opened up about the mark on her back. Earlier, she had put on a brave face and said those things, but it was clear she had struggled a lot in the past. Her birthmark had become a source of insecurity, and she kept it hidden. You're the first person outside my family to see this mark, and I didn't know what you'd think. Wait, Emily, you've never had a boyfriend before? My voice grew louder in surprise. I quickly glanced at the door to make sure no one was there, then looked back at her. Blushing, she shook her head. Well, it's not like you've ever had one either, right, Alex? Why are you trying to compete with me on this? I'm not competing. It's just a waste since you're popular. Same goes for you, Emily. But if I showed someone my back, they'd probably be turned off. They wouldn't be. Honestly, it's beautiful. There you go again, saying things without any shame. An awkward silence fell between us. After a while, Emily spoke up. Hey. If you don't mind, I'd like to say this. Since we're both inexperienced in relationships, why don't we try dating? We won't judge each other for not knowing anything. I looked up at her, surprised by the unexpected proposal. Her face was even redder than before. Are you sure? Even someone like me, who has no special skills and is terrible at conversation. Are you really okay with that? She looked straight into my eyes with a serious expression and said, I'm not saying it's okay just for the sake of it. When you saw my back, you didn't flinch. Instead, you called it beautiful. That made me so happy. I've always admired your ability to see people without prejudice. And I like you, Alex. Having said this, she looked down, clearly embarrassed. Hearing her words, I realized the feelings that had been growing inside me. The discomfort I felt when other men looked at her, the attraction I felt during our conversations, it all made sense now. I had been suppressing these feelings because of my past. But her confession lifted the lid on those emotions. I realized I liked her too. I've felt the same way. Emily, you've always extended a hand to someone like me, who struggles with communication. I admire your kindness and your ability to treat everyone without prejudice. Plus, you're beautiful. Her eyes widened with delight. Oh my gosh. If you keep saying things like that, I'll fall for you even more. I reached out my hand to her. Once again, even though I'm just me, will you let me be by your side not just as a subordinate, but as your partner? With tears of joy in her eyes, she took my hand. Although we started off awkwardly, even struggling to hold hands at first, we gradually went on more dates and grew closer. At work, thanks to her, I became more comfortable talking to both men and women. Apparently, my reputation improved as well. According to Emily, I became someone the women especially admired. I wish you had stayed less sociable. And you, Emily, get approached by too many men. I wish you'd hide that beautiful face a bit more. She turned away, embarrassed. Spending time with me seemed to boost her confidence a bit. She said, I'm still a bit self-conscious about wearing a swimsuit in front of the opposite sex, but I think I could manage a women-only hot spring. Showing a more positive attitude towards her insecurities. Together, we faced our insecurities and worked toward overcoming them. Several years have passed since we started dating. Now, we are at our wedding venue. Having started as an office romance, our wedding was celebrated by many people. After the ceremony, I took in the sight of her in her wedding dress. Her back, which she had once considered a flaw, was exposed, showing the beautiful mark and her smooth skin. I'm sorry for having this body. But I'll do my best to make you happy. What are you talking about? Your mark is beautiful. And making you happy is supposed to be my line. Saying this, she hugged me with a radiant smile. I embraced her in return. In my heart, I vowed, I will do my best for her, forever.